The Changeover is back with another episode. This week,
I could tell if someone was clicking on specific links in emails, or if they were coming from Google and what keyword they typed when they landed on my website from Google. Those days are over. So what that tells us as marketers is SEO is less about doing the right technical things to trick Google, or even any technical things that will get you more traffic. It's really more about publishing the content that answers your customers' questions in a high quality way. But we need to reframe what's going on. Instead of saying that these AI platforms are stealing our clicks, think about it as these AI platforms are qualifying traffic for us.
Yes. On today's episode of The Changeover, we're diving into the biggest shift in digital marketing since inbound was invented. I'm Chelsea Drusch, Director of Client Strategy at Weidert Group. My guest today, Dale Bertrand, explains how AI and zero-click search are reshaping the customer journey, and why your brand's reputation now lives inside generative platforms like ChatGPT. You'll hear how to adapt your SEO strategy, balance user experience with machine optimization, and ensure your brand shows up when prospects are asking AI for advice. Let's get into it. Dale, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you. For those who have not been at HubSpot's Inbound Conference, I've been there, 5 or 6 times, and every time you speak, you're in a bigger room. So you must be a fan favorite.
Oh, well, I love it. That's one of my favorite conferences of the year and one of my best audiences. So I love that conference.
I thought you did great this year. Your talk on zero-click search strategies was very interesting, and I think my favorite part about hearing your take on all of these SEO updates as things change, what seems like every year or every month or every minute, is that you do a good job using analogies to explain it in a way that everybody can understand, even though you have a very technical background. Can you, for our audience, explain a little bit about that background you have?
So for me, I studied computer engineering undergrad, and I studied AI in grad school. And then immediately after college, I was working as a software developer in a very esoteric field. So I was building software simulators of semiconductor devices, and I worked at a number of different startups. Did that for like 10 years, but then 15 years ago, I switched over to marketing. And that's when I started down the path of building my agency and doing SEO.
That's so interesting. I think you are uniquely positioned in the changes we're seeing in SEO today. As AI takes place, generative search starts to rise. Because of your background, I feel like you're uniquely positioned to help us all figure out how to move forward and how to be successful because you understand how it works.
I'm doing my best. There's still a lot of mystery. There's still a lot of mystery there. But what we found is like we can take a look at patents like that Google is filing. And then also there's the Google API leak, where Google leaked a bunch of internal documents that was really useful. And then also Google provided some testimony in some trials where they were forced to talk about how their search engine works. So there's like these technical bits online, and you can put the pieces together.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit for us from your perspective, kind of how it used to be and how it's morphing today and what you're learning specific to Google first? Because that's what everyone's most familiar with. Where were we before when we were really dependent on keywords? What did that look like? And what is it changing to today?
Well, at the very highest level, there's like 2 tracks. Like one track where Google and other search engines used to be lexical search engines, which means they would look for keywords on pages. And all of us as marketers, we were trained to do our keyword research, identify the keywords that our customers are typing in, and then build content around those keywords. And that was the old way of doing SEO. Nowadays, search engines like Google and every other search engine are using AI in various forms. When I say AI, like many different types of AI, not just the generative AI that we're used to. Mm-hmm. But they're using AI under the hood to understand what the query means, what this person is asking, and who they are for personalization. And they're also using AI to understand the content on websites so that AI or the search engine can serve up the right information. So it's more important to be topically relevant to the searches that your customers are performing online than it is to have the right keywords. Now, that's the first way things are changing. But even at a higher level, you could, like what I've noticed, because I started doing SEO like literally 20 years ago. And back then it was more technical. I got into it because I was a programmer and I was messing around with HTML, CSS and generating websites and fixing technical things to get more traffic. And what's happened in the last 20 years is that search engines, especially Google, because that's what we're focused on, have matured. And because Google is more mature, it's less easy to manipulate than it was back in the day when I was manipulating the search results with technical changes. So the other way that search engines are changing is that they're just better. They're better at finding the right information for a given query, and they're better at finding high value content. So what that tells us as marketers is SEO is less about doing the right technical things to trick Google, or even any technical things that will get you more traffic. It's really more about publishing the content that answers your customers' questions in a high quality way.
Yeah, that last part is always so interesting to me because the trap I fear most as a marketer and as an advisor and a consultant to people who are marketing is that we get overly obsessed with optimizing for whatever mechanism is delivering our message, and we lose the end game in the process. So what I've always found interesting, the true best way to go about creating content and attracting the people you need to sell to forever, regardless of whatever mechanism is delivering it, is to understand that audience really well, know their pain points, know what they need, and deliver them value. Like that part has never changed, but it's always felt like we needed to do this dance of maybe putting audience first, and that's how we generate our ideas of what we're going to write about. But then we have to make sure that the way we go about creating that content and putting it out in the world also satisfies the robots. Do you feel like, given the way our generative AI search experiences are changing and how they function and how buyers are using them in a way that's a little different than maybe how they've used Google in the past, are we at the point where we don't have to do the dance anymore? Or are there still certain ways we need to structure, and from your perspective, the technical optimizations, that content to make sure that it's discoverable and scrapable and positioned properly?
I hate to give a depends answer, but my honest answer from talking to, probably 100 people at Inbound on this topic after my talk is that it depends on how your brain works. Like if you're a technical person like me, then I would dig deep into how Google's AI mode works and vector embeddings and all of that to understand the right way to create and optimize content so that AI crawlers can understand them and will use them in their answers. But if you're not a technical person like me, which is most marketers out there, then you can ignore a lot of that, to be honest. Like you really can't ignore it. Instead, what you focus on is, like you said, Chelsea, because you articulated it very well, understanding what your customers actually want, what questions they ask when they're making a purchase decision for products and services like the ones that you offer, and then making sure that you're offering it in a format that is clear and easy to consume and the right format for the information that you're offering. If it's a technical product that you're selling, like a computer chip or something, then these would be tables of technical specifications. If it's not, you might be offering online therapy, and it would be stories of your patients and the transformations that they've had in your online therapy. But it's really understanding what your customers want to see. And then one point that I'll make is a lot of us have joined the marketing profession at the dawn of the digital age, or the height of the digital marketing age. There was marketing before the internet. In case there's a question, right? And there was marketing before there was digital marketing. And it almost feels like we're going back to that. If you're a marketer who's hiding behind analytics, like trying to figure out what to write about by looking at Search Console or maybe an SEO tool like Moz or Ahrefs or SEMrush, something like that, like that's not marketing. That's like optimizing for analytics. And there was a time when search engines like Google were more easily manipulated, where you could get away with that, when keyword targeting was still a thing, when you could get away with that. But the search engines, like I'm saying, even traditional Google search, if you're using traditional Google search, it's AI based under the hood, even though it's not a generative AI search engine like AI mode or ChatGPT. It's still using AI under the hood and understanding what your customers are looking for, the information they need, the formats that they want. And you as a marketer, like, you need to talk to your customers to figure that out on your own. And there's no SEO tool, no GA4 or Search Console that's going to tell you that by giving you a list of keywords. You have to have that conversation. And if you're not able to, you might need to go to an organization where you're not stuck behind analytics, or maybe you're talking to salespeople or listening to sales calls or customer support tickets or chat logs or something. But you've got to get out from behind analytics platforms to really do your job well nowadays.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in there. I have like 3 things I want to go off of that with, but I'm going to start with, I think the most important part about all of this change. People like to be super fascinated with the tech changes, right? Everyone's talking about ChatGPT and how it works, and Perplexity and Claude and all of these things. And to your point of, you don't necessarily have to understand specifically all the details of the absolute best way to make something discoverable for that machine for it to still get picked up. It's almost like the old school Google search mechanism. The technical optimization parts were an entry barrier. Now it feels like it can be a boost, but it's not necessarily an entry barrier if you have everything perfectly, exactly, structurally, technically optimized. But the most important thing behind that is that I see the actual search behavior changing. We were trained not only as marketers with Google search to focus on keywords as a way to derive what we should write about and create that content, but searchers were trained to search that way too. So I always like to come back to the changes in the buyer journey and searcher behavior, because now the searchers are almost unlocked as well, because you don't have to try to put in the right phrase in Google, like Google the right way to get the terms you're looking for. You can just write your conversational question with all the context you want to get a very specific answer. And that is really what's behind all the changes in tech, and what's behind, therefore, what we need to do differently as marketers.
Yeah, and I love that you brought this back to search behavior, because at the end of the day, what matters is for you as a marketer at a brand or at an agency working for brands, how are your customers searching for the products and services that you provide? And this is on top of making sure you're providing the right information, but you want to make sure you understand what tools they're using, what questions they're asking. Are they still typing in 3-word keywords, or are they typing in much longer, complex queries? Are they using like Google Deep Research, or are they using traditional Google or ChatGPT? Like, that really, really matters. And it's going to be a mixture, but that mixture is going to be different for every brand. And what I want to throw on there is, like, back when Google AI overviews came out, we all noticed that traffic started declining, like organic traffic. Mm-hmm. And it was the dawn of zero-click search, which is a scary thing for digital marketers who are used to getting free traffic from Google and converting that traffic.
Yep.
But now that it's pretty clear, zero-click search is here to stay. Google is going to switch their default search experience over to AI mode, so that Google is going to look a lot like ChatGPT soon enough. And that's an even scarier thing, right? Like, we expect traffic to get cut in half again when that happens. But we need to reframe what's going on. Instead of saying that these AI platforms are stealing our clicks, think about it as these AI platforms are qualifying traffic for us.
Yes.
And if you think about it that way, that the AI platforms are qualifying our traffic for us, then you've got to think, okay, well, how do I want them to qualify that traffic? What do I want them to know about my brand and my competitors, and the comparisons I want them to make, the information I want them to have, the data points, the case studies, the examples, so that they qualify the traffic well, and the traffic I do get is much better, much higher quality. And I want to throw one more data point here. We did a survey of healthcare brands just for our healthcare clients. And we were looking at the traffic drop over the last year, and then also the change in the quality of that traffic. And we were looking at conversion rate to measure the quality of that traffic. And what we found in that sample of a few dozen healthcare sites was that on average, their traffic had gone down by 40% over the last year, which is a huge dip. Mm-hmm. But also we noticed that their conversion rate on that traffic had gone up by 60%. So we're finally able, just in this small sample set in one industry, to quantify that improvement in quality of traffic, thinking about these AI platforms as pretty much like doing the qualifying for us rather than thinking about them as stealing traffic. Because the traffic that they're stealing is the informational traffic that for the most part wasn't converting anyway.
Yes.
So we need to be thinking about how are we getting more of that middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel traffic that's more likely to become a customer, more likely to buy from us, and how are we educating the AI platforms so that they're qualifying on our behalf and sending us the right traffic.
So true. So true. We talked earlier about the change in the type of content we need to create as being driven by our customers' needs over like a keyword. Can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing the type of content we should be creating as marketers changing when you use the context of the buyer's journey?
There's a lot there because it really is specific to your buyer's journey for your brand, for your customers. So that's the important thing. Going forward, like we're going to be getting traffic from traditional search engines, mostly Google, but then also AI platforms, which will be Google's AI mode and ChatGPT. It's going to eventually shift more and more over the course of the next couple of years towards those AI search platforms. The reason why I say it's going to be both is because SEO still matters. It's just not going to deliver as much traffic, even though the traffic is going to be better. Like it still matters. What we're seeing from traditional search, which is like not ChatGPT, not AI mode, is that we're getting less traffic, but it's better traffic, just like I was saying before. So that's where SEO still matters. Like it'll still be valuable. And we call this like traffic is down, but revenue is up. So the value of the channel of SEO is still valuable because we're still generating the same amount of revenue and new customers. Like customer acquisition is still working even though traffic is down. So like it's important for us as marketers to talk to our leadership and make sure our leadership understands that, well, we're growth marketers, not vanity marketers. Vanity marketers are driving traffic so they can point to a number that's going up. Mm-hmm. But growth marketers are pointing to revenue improving and customer acquisition and higher quality traffic and higher quality customers and engagements that you're generating from your SEO efforts. Like that's really important. So it's important for us to make sure that we're telling the right story. And for us as marketers, like things are changing and it is our job, if we want to keep our jobs, to educate our leadership about how measurement needs to change. And then on the other side, like when we're optimizing for AI search platforms like ChatGPT and AI mode, like what really is different is we're not doing keyword targeting anymore. Like back in the day, we were optimizing for high value, high traffic keywords, because that's like a direct response model where we publish the content, we get the traffic, it converts to whatever it is that we want. And we were also creating long tail content, going after long tail keywords. But now, and I'm not saying don't do that anymore, like that will still work for traditional search engines. It's just that the amount of traffic that we're getting from traditional search engines will go down slowly over the next few years.
Yeah, it's the expectation setting that needs to change. The understanding of what your buyers are actually doing and what you should expect as a measure of success when you're looking at these different platforms and these different operations they're utilizing on their journey. It's different between what Google and traditional search used to be and then what it is today, and then even also today between what you should expect as a measure of success and how you should measure and attribute it, right? Between Google search and generative search. That's different too. I think that's a huge hurdle for marketers.
Yes, we're going over the course of this transition started 2 or 3 years ago. But over the course of, let's call it 6 years, because I'm coming up with round numbers here, we're going from a place where most search traffic is coming from Google, 90%. And we're moving to a place over that period of time where half of it will come from a traditional search engine, mostly Google, but then the other half will come from AI mode or get gobbled up by AI overviews, or it'll be ChatGPT, maybe Perplexity, much, much more likely ChatGPT. So we're going to have to be optimizing for all of the above. And when we're optimizing for these AI search platforms, we're not optimizing for keywords, we're optimizing for topics. These are the topics that our customers care about. And when we're optimizing for these topics, one of the things that AI search platforms is looking for is that you comprehensively cover the topic. So if I was writing about air filters, am I also writing about asthma and HEPA filters and all the other topics that AI expects to be related to this topic? And if you are, then that's the one of the criteria for high quality content that AI search engines are going to pick up. But that's different from the old definition that had to do with putting the keywords in the right places.
Mm-hmm. For sure. We started to talk about measurement and attribution a little bit, and I want to jump back to that for a minute because I think that is one of the biggest hurdles that we're going to have as marketers, because to your point earlier, we also have to keep our jobs. So it's great if we can create this great experience for our customers, but we have to be able to prove that what we did mattered. And we're coming out of what felt like a very attribution heavy marketing period where everyone was all about connecting dots as directly as possible and saying, because I did this, this happened, and this revenue came from that. I see that really getting muddy as we talk about moving into a type of experience where generative is so prevalent. Because to your point, it's not keyword specific searches. Like every query is unique. There's the reporting doesn't even exist yet, if it ever will, in the tools themselves, the way you can use a SEMrush or an Ahrefs or Google Search Console to look at keywords today. So what's your advice to marketers who have to keep their jobs and prove that these things they're doing are working when there's no more line that connects them directly?
Well, this is the question I get from everybody.
Yeah.
I started my marketing career with like a business that I ran in high school in the early 80s. And sorry to take you back, early 90s. I'm really dating myself. Early 90s, and I'm sorry to give you a history lesson here. But back then, I did not have access to the internet. I was putting a software product out, hoping people that would find it. I wrote some copy in some messages that I sent to people on some bulletin board systems like CompuServe and eventually AOL that I had access to back then. So there was marketing before the internet. Then the internet came around and I started some other businesses. Most of them didn't work out. But I loved the fact that I had access to that direct attribution that you were talking about. I could tell if somebody was clicking on specific links in emails, or if they were coming from Google and what keyword they typed when they landed on my website from Google. Those days are over. Like it was a dream. It was a nice dream. It was a hallucination. It felt good. It felt really good, but it's done.
Yeah.
Get over it. We're back to what marketing was before we had that complete attribution. And what we had to do was we had to measure other things that are farther downstream, like revenue or engagement with the website or purchases or people setting up maybe calls with salespeople, like book a call. Whatever it is that you actually care about, I almost feel good about it because when we were focused on traffic, we thought traffic mattered.
Yeah.
Then it went away and we realized, ooh, wait a minute, like our revenue is still up. There's still ways to grow revenue. What we actually cared about at the end of the day was customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. And for many of us as marketers, like it dawned on us, oh, the marketers that were getting promoted, the marketers that the CEO loved were the ones that were focused on customer acquisition and growing the business, not the ones who were focused on rankings and technical talk that none of the executives really understood at the end of the day anyway. So we've got to refocus ourselves on what matters to our business and explain to our leadership that we're not vanity marketers, we are growth marketers. So let's talk about the metrics that actually matter to the business, and we can talk about some campaigns that will move the needle, and we're not going to have direct attribution. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So if leadership is banging banging your head on that, then you just have to help them understand how, the fever dream that we had when we were hallucinating with direct attribution, like getting the organic keywords that people were typing into Google, like it's just over. Like it was a dream.
I'm going to tell all our clients that Dale said, get over it. and it was all a dream in the first place. That's going to be my line from now on.
Yeah, and when they fire you, then ask them if they want to hire me. All right.
That's too funny. It feels true though. Like what's old is new again. It's almost like getting back to the roots of marketing in a way. Brand awareness is having a resurgence because that has a lot to do with how generative search will discover and rank, so to speak, your content and choose it. You have to have brand mentions. You have to do what feels like old school digital PR work to get your name in places. It does feel in a lot of ways like what's old is new again.
Yeah, and this stuff has always mattered. Like brand marketing has always mattered. It needs to be the right percentage of your budget. I'm not saying put 100% of your budget into brand marketing, but it's always mattered because it's always improved results on other channels. And the reason why we were focused on performance channels like PPC and organic is because we could measure it. Mm-hmm. It's like searching where the light is.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there aren't other tactics that matter, that move the needle. It doesn't mean that there aren't other tactics that are worth investing in. It just means that these are the tactics you can measure. And now that we can't measure them as well, we got to stop and think, okay, wait, what should we have been doing all along? It's not that these are new tactics or these tactics have new value. It's that we have less incentive to over-index on the performance channels.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we need to get back to a metrics philosophy of the rising tide raising all boats. You know, we don't know for sure exactly which campaign or which piece of content or which thing helped what we're seeing trending at the bottom of the funnel with revenue and sales calls or whatever it is we're measuring that matters for our business. But we can say we're doing it right, you know, and there's going to be micro measurements and metrics that we as the marketers making those decisions can utilize to make some correlation guesses at what's doing most of the lifting. But it's almost a sense of freedom and like a resurgence of creativity for marketers to be able to be almost trusted with that creative and strategic decision making and say, look, I can't tell you exactly which thing did which thing, but what we're doing is working because look at the metrics that matter trending up at the bottom of the funnel. You know, it's almost making marketing fun.
Yeah, and it's not that we're going to have zero metrics. It's that we won't be able to draw a straight line.
Yeah.
So we are going to be able to look at refers from AI platforms. We're going to be able to look at traffic numbers we've always had. We're going to be able to look at engagement on the website and social media data from monitoring that we're able to do. We're going to be able to talk to our customers when they do call us and ask them, how did you find us? Which we've always been asking, but a better question is, how did you search for X? Mm-hmm. So that you can understand who did they talk to? What communities were they looking for information? What search engines did they use if they used a search engine? Because not all customers are using search engine. Mm-hmm. Is really important.
Yep. And that's been at the heart of our programs with our clients recently as well, is really leaning into audience research, really leaning into gathering unstructured data from calls with customers, calls with prospects, service calls, all those things to really make sure that we have the best picture specific for that company and their market and how they're acting, because it's not like best practices are almost dead.
Yeah, and this is really a wake-up call moment for marketers, because some marketers really enjoy a performance marketing mindset where they're optimizing towards the metrics, and that worked, and it still works, especially on the PPC side for the most part, even though there are algorithms on the PPC platforms that are taking away a lot of that decision making. But like, you've got to decide as a marketer, like, do you want to do marketing or do you want to do, I don't even know what to call it, or you want to be like an analytics monkey, right?
Yeah.
And it's two different professions. One of those professions is rising and one of those professions is falling. But if you're a real marketer, like you're talking to customers, you're asking the right questions, you're identifying patterns across all of those customer conversations. You're talking to people internally to understand what messaging is working, what messaging is resonating. You're testing the messaging across a number of different channels and a lot of different types of creative and figuring out what works, and then tweaking all of the above and repeating that cycle and figuring out how to strengthen your product market fit. And all of that is different from I'm staring at an analytics platform that's going to tell me what keywords to optimize for, then it's going to tell me how well I did based on a traffic number. Like, those are two different jobs, and you just have to decide which job you want.
I love that. It's almost like the marketers who will look back in 5 years and say they were successful had a higher appetite for risk, were willing to experiment, and were willing to continuously learn from not quantitative data, but the qualitative insights of, like you said, having those conversations and putting a campaign out there and thinking, okay, I'm going to try this thing, and then figuring out how that worked or didn't work. It's like the loop marketing that HubSpot introduced, that optimized part of it, learning from what you did and adjusting and being able to be creative and take risks and do experiments. I think those are the people who are going to look back 5-10 years from now and say, yeah, we were doing a good job.
Absolutely. And what I'll add to that is the marketers who are going to do well in the future are also using AI, but they're using it in the right way. So the best way, like imagine if you've been in the marketing field for 20, 30 years, and maybe you've been at the same company all that time. So this hypothetical marketer has a good, solid understanding of a particular brand and a particular brand's customers, what they want, what their motivations are, how to message them, all of that good stuff. That marketer that we're talking about hypothetically that really understands that market and that customer is going to be very well positioned to use AI tools, because that marketer can discern when the AI is being helpful, when it's not being helpful, when it's hallucinating, when it's helping to write content that is going to resonate with that customer, when it's not. And so having that discernment is really important. And there are many marketers who are new to their brand, or maybe they're new to the field, or all of us are new to generative AI tools. And it's harder to have that level of discernment. So how you build that intuition so that you can discern and use AI tools correctly is tough, but it starts with talking to your customers, as we've said. So like the best marketers going forward are going to be using AI tools for brainstorming, planning, and messaging and content creation, all of that stuff. But they're also going to be grounded in conversations with customers, relationships with real customers, so that they can use those generative AI tools wisely. And that's really important.
Okay, if you had to give our audience 3 marching orders in the way the landscape is shifting today, what 3 things would you recommend they start doing? Whether that's an actual action, a change in mindset, gathering that information we've been talking about, talking to customers. What 3 things do you think would be a good starting point for someone who's trying to make this adjustment?
The first one is to talk to your leadership and make sure that you're all on the same page. Like in the worst case, you might not be in the right organization to make this shift. And that sucks, obviously. Like I wouldn't wish that on anybody if you have to make a career move based on this. But you really do need to talk to your executive team, make sure that they understand what you're optimizing for going forward. And digital marketing is just not going to work the same way it did in the past with clear-cut metrics. So that's one thing that is really important. Another thing that's important, as we've said multiple times, but it really is the most important thing, you should start there, is how are you going to have conversations with your customers? And there are many of us that are working as marketers, and we're buried deep in a marketing organization where we don't have direct access to our customers. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not okay. You will not flourish in your job if you don't have some access to your customers, even if it's just talking to salespeople or recorded or listening to recorded sales calls, something. So you definitely need to figure that one out. And then the third one is to understand that like SEO and what we're calling GEO, generative engine optimization. So optimizing for AI platforms. Like SEO and GEO are 2 different tools with a lot of overlap. You think of the SEO tool as keyword targeting for the most part, and it's good for direct response marketing. That's the type of marketing that we were able to prove out very well and demonstrate the value. But then there's GEO, which is different because we're building out content that is on specific niche topics and also covers related topics. So it's viewed by the AI as comprehensive. And what that's good for primarily is really brand visibility and reputation management with some direct conversion. That's why there's some overlap. But it's important to think of them as 2 different tools, and you'll need to do both going forward because traditional search engines based on AI under the hood will always be there. But there will be like ChatGPT and Google's AI mode, like these AI platforms that we also need to worry about. And when we're optimizing for them, we're doing GEO, and GEO is just a different tool for an overlapping set of different purposes.
Mm-hmm. Funny question for you. We were also leaning towards GEO as the terminology that we're using for this discipline. And then, I don't know if you noticed, but at Inbound, HubSpot is using AEO. So what are we going to call it?
So first of all, it doesn't matter. I like generative engine optimization because it's a little more technical. Like, it highlights the fact that these engines aren't returning a list of pages. They're returning a generative synthesized answer. Mm-hmm. They're generating an answer, not returning results. But the answer engine optimization, but there's another one, AIEO.
There's so many.
Right. But the other one, answer engine optimization, highlights the same thing, but it highlights something different, which is that we as marketers need to create content with modular standalone passages that are relevant to the questions that our customers are asking, that provide concise, comprehensive answers to those questions. So that's good too. Like, it's a good shortcut for a way to think about it, and I'm totally fine with that. So the last thing you'll see me do is get in, without a lot of drinks in me, I guess, would be for me to get into an argument about which acronym to use, because I don't care, and that's a waste of breath. But it does help to understand why people favor different acronyms.
Yeah, I'm just very curious to see where it ends up landing, if it ever lands over time. I will say our stance has been, as you alluded to earlier, to really talk about search visibility as a whole, to incorporate both, so that anywhere that search-like behavior is taking place, whether that's on traditional search, on generative search, or even forums, social can even fall in there if that's a mechanism your audience is utilizing, that we're treating all of those things for what they really are from a human behavior perspective. It's places people are going to get an answer to a question. So we've been trying to build comprehensive search visibility strategies and use that type of language so that people are not in their heads that they need to decide budget allocation between an SEO and a GEO. It's not a war. It all needs to work together. And to our point, this entire podcast, you have to do it according to what your audience actually needs and is doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Change is coming. In fact, change is already here. And each of us has to figure out, where do we want our career to go?
I love thinking about it from the perspective of learning our audience, but also learning ourselves as marketers in this profession. Like, that's important and central to it all too. So I really love that perspective. Well, thank you so much, Dale, for joining us. I had a great time chatting with you as always, and I can't wait to speak with you some more.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It was a fun conversation, so happy to come back anytime.
Thanks for joining us on the ChangeOver podcast. Remember to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Weidert.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you'd like to hear about next time by messaging Weidert Group on social media. Thanks for watching.